Yo, what's poppin', Logang? We're just on a roll with the productivity today. I just fixed my computer because it had fucking Wi-Fi issues, and now I can finally work again. And so I was like, you know what, let's just get all the rants done with. Today's rant comes from Bedoofus, who says, rank about the first Haruhi book. Minor spelling error. Utterly destroyed. Also, he replies, or your thoughts on AniTube as a whole. If you don't want to read a book, LMAO, nerd. And, this rant was very conflicting. Because both of them are really good rants. They're both things that I would like to talk about, and, that I think I have something to say about and an interest in, right? But I am barely preferring the Haruhi rant because the AniTube rant, I am not nearly as active in the AniTube community as you would expect from an AniTuber, Even though I am very much a part of this community and in this sphere, I don't really watch many AniTube videos. I am very much inspired by just a few people, namely Digibro. That's literally the only AniTuber I'm inspired by. Everything else is just my own take on the subject and my own way of making videos. Granted, still pulling from a variety of different YouTubers, but if we're talking AniTubers, I'm very much inspired by just the one guy. And then, strangely enough, like, if I had to rank all my favorite AniTubers after that, they'd be like Vlusky and unironically Rufus. Fucking people who aren't even the big old AniTube fucking mega dudes, the ones with trillions of subs. Dude, two of the Trash Taste podcast members, barely even make anime content anymore, if I recall correctly. Joey's moved on to video gaming, and Connor is more about Japan stuff as a whole, I'm fairly sure. And Trash Taste barely even talks about anime anymore. Anyway, that was that was a tongue twister. Holy shit. But yeah, I've been going on long enough about AniTube as a whole. Basically, it is a rant topic I'm interested in, but I don't need to read the first Haruhi book because I have already read it. A little over, like a year and a half ago, something like that. And I read it for the first time. I had already watched the anime. Except for Disappearance. I have not seen Disappearance, and Bedoofus is very upset with me for not watching Disappearance because he thinks it's peak fiction, and everyone says it's peak fiction, and it probably is peak fiction, let's be real. But I wanted to read the first 3 light novels, I think is how many there are before we get to the Disappearance arc, then both read the light novel and watch the movie. Because I own the first 4 Haruhi novels, I just haven't gotten around to reading anything past the first novel. So, Haruhi Volume 1 is a rather simple story told in an exceptionally convoluted way. It's very, very meta. Haruhi is essentially a girl who wishes she were in an anime. She's one of those people that's like, my life in anime. And then the proper response is, which one, you Getsuno bitches? And, she desperately wants to live in one, but she sadly lives in the real world. However, that's not actually what happens, because as it turns out, she is surrounded by time travelers, espers, fucking aliens, all sorts of crazy shit is happening all around her. But she cannot be made, she cannot know about it, or else the world will either end or fundamentally change in ways that are impossible to predict. Because, and this is where we get to the big O spoilers, so if you've somehow not been spoiled on one of the most infamous twists in anime history, I guess leave? Anyway, Haruhi is God. She is literally God, and she made the world 3 years ago as of the book's events. And this is where the book just goes completely off the walls, because the entire joke of Haruhi, it's a very funny book if you read it, is that it goes from a very normal slice of life for like over 100 pages. It is not an insignificant span of time spent being an ordinary slice of life. But it very quickly becomes just complete insanity with the most fucking mind-bending plot twists imaginable. Conveyed in really interesting ways. One of my favorite... God, I should have brought the fucking book with me to read off this passage. But it's fucking hilarious, where Yuki Nagato decides to confide in Kion the fact that she is actually an alien. And she does this in the most nonsensical way possible. She basically describes the process of how aliens were created in pure, unbroken technobabble that's completely esoteric and nearly impossible to understand, using the most obfuscated and obscure language possible for like 2 or 3 pages, unbroken, without any explanation. And Kion is just like, what the fuck did you just say? He is completely clueless. He does not even know what happened. And then it's just not even really explained until eventually we learn that Asahina is also a time traveler. And we eventually get to grips with what is actually happening. But it is a very delightful moment, and I was laughing my ass off the entire time. It is the best possible way that twist could have been sprung on the audience. And the book also, it is focused on not being predictable, because when, what the fuck was it, Itsuki? I think his name is Itsuki. It might not be, Koizumi, that's one of his names. Is that the first or last name? Is that even one of his names? I don't know. The Esper dude, let's just call him that. And he tells Kion that he's an Esper, and Kion like calls the twist. He's just like, yeah, that makes sense at this point. But then he's the one to tell him that Haruhi is God and that the world was created 3 years ago, and that all his memories before then are false. And, it's very, very mind-bending and fun, and it's really playing with the meta of anime, because, like I said, the entire point is that Haruhi is surrounded by anime tropes, and even down to their personalities, especially Asahina and Yuki, are they're the most extreme versions of their tropes possible. Asahina isn't just a ditzy girly girl, she is the most ditzy, the most girly girl. Yuki isn't just deadpan, she is the most deadpan character that you can imagine, and a lot of the prose of the book is just describing in increasingly convoluted ways, trying to find any wording possible to describe the level of deadpan of Yuki's voice or tone or actions. It is very amusing to watch unfold. And, it's a very tongue-in-cheek comedic series. But at the end of the day, its narrative, although convoluted in what actually happens, is thematically very simple and coherent. And this is where I think Haruhi really shows its true genius. Because the whole idea of Haruhi's character is that, she's bored of life. She wants there to be more with the world. And Kion is kind of the same way. At the beginning of the book, he monologues to himself that, life's just fucking boring, Back in the day, my imagination was whirring, and I, thought of all these crazy things happening, but he's become jaded. He's sarcastic. He's, he's very, very cynical. He's there to just look at everything that's happening in the book and sigh. Even when he should probably intervene, when Haruhi is being genuinely diabolical. But instead, he's so cynical, so jaded, and he's internalized the idea that he can't change anything to the point where he just doesn't act at all. He's a bystander until the very end of the book, when it's revealed that Haruhi has essentially lost hope in the world. She is so bored and so tired of it that she is accidentally recreating, like destroying the world and creating a new one in its wake. However, she has spared Kion, because Kion, over the course of the novel, it's very apparent that Haruhi is in love with Kion, and to stop her from accidentally destroying the world, what Kion needs to do is kiss Haruhi. And this is where the probably the most genius way the book could have ended, because the message of the story essentially is that the world isn't boring. There's fun stuff everywhere, but it's not fun because there's time travelers, and it's not fun because there's aliens or espers. It's fun because people are fun, because Kion is fun. Fucking you can kiss boys, isn't that pretty fun? And so it's very, like, that's enough to give Haruhi more faith in the world, and to just keep it around, because she knows that, hey, Kion's here and I care about him and I want to date him, therefore I have a place in this world. I can stay attached to it. And on the one hand, it is very funny to think that the message of the story is life is worth living because you can kiss boys. But on the other hand, it is actually thematic brilliance, and I think a really good message executed extremely well. Other than that, like I said, the book's funny. The characters are just so fun. I love how fucking diabolical Haruhi is. Haruhi is legitimately evil, and I am not mincing words here. I am not exaggerating. She is actually evil. And I know a lot of people raise issue with the fact that, like, Haruhi groping Asahina all the time and just putting her in outfits against her will and, fucking stripping her and genuinely traumatizing her. That's, many people will say that's distasteful, and on the one hand, I do kind of agree, but on the other hand, it's sort of this appreciation for it in the same way that I appreciate the Araragi and Hachikuji running gag from Monogatari, where, on the one hand, yeah, it's a little wince-inducing the first time you see it, and the second time, and, okay, all the times you see it, but on the other hand, it is, like, once you get used to it, once the series Stockholm Syndromes you into accepting its bullshit, you can kind of appreciate that it makes the show more humorous, or I guess in this case, a novel. Because, I just think it's very fun that Haruhi is arguably, one of the least deserving people of the title of God that you could imagine. She fucking, once again, gropes people. She basically blackmails the computer club into giving her a computer because she just wants it. She's a selfish prick, and to do so, she forces one of the men in the club on Asahina. She's essentially assaulted both of them at the same time. How is that even possible? That is fucking horrendous. That is just genuinely evil behavior, because he didn't consent to having his hand on her tit, and she didn't consent to having his hands on her tit either. It's the fucking worst. And yet, she's that selfish, and also, blackmailing people, and I think it's also very characterizing for Kion, because he isn't much better. Asahina is a victim, and she is too scared to do anything about the abuse she suffers. Yuki just doesn't care, but Kion does care. He does grimace at everything. He thinks it's fucking awful, but he just sighs and let it all go by, because as a protagonist, once again, he does not intervene in anything. He is very much a bystander, right? And so he lets himself get dragged around everywhere because he has no spine, and he will not stand up for himself nor other people, generally speaking, right? He just sits there and watches Haruhi be the fucking worst. And as I recall, the second volume and the movie making arc in the anime, which is in season 2, if memory serves correct, that's when Kion blows up on Haruhi finally. And I remember disliking how that was executed, but I'd have to rewatch that arc and read the novel to get a better sense of it, because like back when I first watched the anime before I read the novel, I didn't actually like it because I didn't really get it. I wasn't far enough in my anime journey, nor was I old enough to really understand the appeal of the series, I think, right? Because it is a little meta, a little mindfucky. It gets you to appreciate it for its sheer uniqueness. And also I just wasn't intelligent enough to pick up what the series was putting down thematically. And so, basically I was too stupid to understand what made Haruhi good. But now that I'm 19, which means I'm ancient in internet years, that means that I am finally smart enough to understand the intricacies of Haruhi. I have probably gone on for a very long time about Haruhi. My voice is fucking shot at this. Oh god fucking damn it, burp. Yeah, my voice is killing me. But I have a lot to say about this series. What can I say? I actually wrote a review on AniList about the series, which you can read if you just go to my AniList profile. I think it's linked under all my videos. It's a pretty good review, but we'll see. I've always wanted to make it a channel video, because it is a good review of the book, but I wanted to reread the novel before putting it up on the channel, just to make sure there isn't anything I would change now, because I wrote that review well over a year ago. And actually, in the review itself, which is something that aged very poorly, I said that I wanted to review all the novels as I read them, and then I just didn't read them, so oops. Maybe I'll make more of them when I finally continue the series. I really want to continue it, because it is fun. I do really like it. It's a fucking great book series. Well, at least the first book is. And I imagine, as it goes on, it continues being great. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks for the rant, Bidoofus, and see ya.